Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this week's weekly wrap. It's the 2nd of April, 2026, as we head into the long weekend for Easter. How are you, gentlemen? Anthony, nice to have you on the screen and join us. How are you going, buddy?
Very good, Luke. Yeah, long weekend.
And
Both
it's all,
ends, Friday and Monday.
it's always nice to have 2 short weeks, but 2 short weeks means trying to get a lot of work done uh, very quickly, which is always a pain in the backside. And what about you, young Nick? How are you, buddy?
Yeah, really well, really well, and looking forward to Easter. It's always a nice time with the family, so it should be good.
Good stuff, mate. Good stuff. Now, it's been a big week on markets. If you were reading the press, if you were watching the news, you would have thought the world was falling down or collapsing all around us. And, there's a bit of Chicken Little out there, I guess. But it sounds like it's been a very different story on markets.
Yeah, if you look at the broad numbers, and it is Thursday, folks. So we've only really got 3 days of trading data, both in Australia and the US. The market's just about to open in Australia, and it's pointing upwards after last night, so that's good. But looking at what we've seen 3.24% up in the US S&P 500. The Nasdaq's up 3.7, and in Australia the All Ords is up, call it 2%, 1.99. We've been paying close attention to this, and I think one of the dot points I had to talk about was like, I hope you've got your seatbelt on, and it feels a little bit like that as an investor. And if I look at a couple of the days there's some pretty sort of big numbers, like in Australia on the 1st of April. So yesterday we had a 2.32% positive day on the market yesterday. So that's
Wow.
it. That's in a single day, and that sort of bodes as a massive uplift for the Aussie market. And I think it's the sort of the biggest rise that we've had in about a year. In a single day on the market. And I think out of the 11 sectors that we actually have, 10 of them were actually higher yesterday. So that was good. But I sort of drilled down to the numbers a little bit, and it has been a pretty messy start to the year, but the calendar year 2026. And if I look at where we've sort of come from financial year to date, the Aussie market is off about 1.6. During that period. If I look at the US, the Nasdaq's off 6, the S&P's off 4. So probably we've been saved a little bit by the fact that our valuations aren't as lofty as what we've seen over in the United States. But at a monthly level, most of the damage has actually been done in the last month. So we're off about 6%. If I take away that rally of yesterday, the month of March, it was actually 8% down for Australian equity markets. So we always talk about not focusing too much on the short term when it comes to the markets. And when I look at that in the context of what's happened over the last 12 months as an investor, had you been invested for a full 12 months, the Australian market's given you a 9% return. US market S&P has given you a 16% return. Nasdaq's given you a 25% return. So whilst we're seeing this volatility and we're seeing significant movements in the volatility, our message to clients is that this is why we remain invested. Because over time we do get rewarded for being investors, but in the shorter periods of time like we have now, that we are going to see this sort of volatility. And I must give credit to the Innate Wealth clients, because the majority of people have really sort of taken on board all the education that we sort of put forward when we're working with clients about making sure you're not a forced seller, making sure that you've got enough for your short-term requirements and the next couple of years, so that when you do get times like this, instead of going down a rabbit hole and thinking the world is going to fall in all over you, you're sitting back saying that, oh, I now understand why I've got this cash tucked away, because I'm going to allow the rest of my portfolio to do its job. And I think it's important sometimes that you can eliminate that noise. And it's very difficult to do, like with social media and all the rest of it now. We just continually get bombarded with information. But the reality is that once you look at it and you sort of go, in the cold-hearted day, that's actually not a bad result that we've had here. And that's what we're sort of seeing when we're reviewing our portfolios. So big kudos to our clients, because they've almost become seasoned investors and seasoned pros at this. Always a little bit more difficult for clients that are new to this investment space. But even for those clients, we generally try and become investors over a period of time, as opposed to going in and in one massive hit. So well done, guys. And like I said, make sure those seatbelts are on, because the news that I'm seeing and that I'm sure you're all hearing doesn't look flash. And we know that headlines are sold by bad news, and I'm sure there'll be plenty more of that coming our way.
No, well done, Mick, and I think timely in terms of your instruction and your guidance there from that end, and I think it really is important for clients not to overreact to headlines, and not to just assume that what they're hearing, and to then go to the default position of being it's the worst outcome possible. In many cases, it's not. And as we've seen, as long as you focus on the hallmarks that we've built our portfolios on, i.e. a very strong mandate, quality asset, and and being well diversified, it won't protect you entirely, but it will guide you through, particularly at these difficult moments. Much of this has been caused on the back of what's going on in Iran, and what we're seeing is that this conflict is still continuing. It's not slowing down anytime soon. Anthony, from your reading, and from what you're seeing, and you've been around the block many a time from that end, any views on or any expectations as to how long this might last?
Oh, look, I think there's the challenge, Luke, and you'll see it similar to the fuel issue that we're seeing at the moment, and we can talk about that later, but effectively, at any point when this conflict is resolved, it's still going to have some time to play out in terms of how that impacts everyone from an economic perspective. Whether markets react quickly and are more positive is probably more likely, but how long is this going to take? Like, we've spoken about this for many a week, in terms of you can't believe too much that comes out of his mouth, because it's just what he wants to believe and what he wants everyone to believe. Whereas what the truth is a fair way apart. So, as much as I think he said this week that within 2 to 3 weeks, his troops will probably move out. But that's somewhat reliant on what Israel and Iran are effectively going to do. Like, if Iran continues some of their current actions, I'm tipping he's not moving out anytime soon. So I think he's now on his own. He's effectively potted pretty much most of the countries inside NATO that they haven't helped him. So, I'm not sure what the solution looks like on his front. I'm not convinced that we're going to get to a resolution that's positive for the global economy anytime soon.
Yeah, no, and fair call. And look, following up on that, I think there's probably two parts to it. We have the end of the war, so that's the first issue, or the end of the conflict, which I think the world would welcome. But then the reality from the end of the conflict is we've now got to repair the damage that this conflict has caused. And I think, if we think about shipping lines can't recommence operations straight away to get oil to the various countries and whatever from that point of view. So I think we're going to have a supply chain shock, regardless of how long this takes. We're going to have a supply chain shock for a while, and that's going to have an impact on prices, not only at the Bowser, but as our clients have correctly pointed out, it's the Bowser is the first part. It goes through the entire economy, through transport, through into food, through into all the goods that we receive from that point of view. This is going to be a problem, and it's not a problem just for Australia. It's a global problem, and the challenge, I guess, is this shock something which is going to be a temporary thing, which causes prices to spike and inflation to rise, and the damage it causes there, and does that tip economies over into recession? So, I think your observation of Trump, as in he's alone. We've watched his behaviours from I've fixed it to I haven't fixed it to I've almost fixed it to I need your help to I don't need your help. Actually, you can go out and help yourselves now from that point of view. Mirko, in that regard, are we watching a man baby?
Oh, there's certainly a bit of a dummy spit going on, and I think I've mentioned this before. It sort of it really sounds like a interaction of one of a young kid in the playground at primary school. I'm not playing with you. I'm taking my bat and ball, going home. But the stakes are a lot higher here than a cricket match at the local primary school. That's for sure. So I think, and I think the way the market has reacted to some of this stuff has been exactly that. Like this little sound bites of information and claims. Like Anthony, you said, can we believe everything that we hear that's coming through? Unfortunately, the answer is probably no. And I think the latest one was that. Donald Trump called NATO a paper tiger or something, and all of a sudden saying, "Well, I might just pull out of there. I'm done with those guys. They're giving me nothing." So you just don't know which way this could go. I mean, one thing is certain though, that having considered what is going on, having considered the ramifications of the oil price. There's certainly this cloud of global economic uncertainty that seems to be building, and people are starting to be concerned about that. And I think that investor psyche is so important in these scenarios. When you start thinking about what could potentially go pear-shaped, that suddenly gets ingrained, and all of a sudden the levels of confidence at a household level, at a business level, at a country level, they start coming into question as well. So we need to keep a pretty close eye on that. But that's okay, guys, because Prime Minister Albanese decided to take some of my airtime last night off as I was sitting on the couch. He had plenty to say, so it's all good, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm glad you raised that, because we all watched it, we all saw it, and I sat there and I've looked at it and gone, well, what was the point of the actual discussion? Because we've got a government here, and I think where the government has been poor here in Australia is that clearly we're not stupid, we're not blind, there's a problem. We've undercooked our level of reserves, and we're dependent on international shipping to bring those reserves and keep those reserves moving from that end. So we've got a real problem here in Australia. But we have a government which is adamant about telling us not to panic and not to do anything silly. And yet last night's conversation by the Prime Minister, if anything, probably added weight to the confusion and to the concern rather than reducing the concern. Just in your view, did you see any merit to what he did last night?
There's a Shakespearean play, famous play, called Much Ado About Nothing. That's what I felt I was watching it, except unlike Shakespeare, I could actually understand what he was saying, and he was still giving me nothing. So that's how I felt last night.
Fair enough too. Anthony, what did you?
No,
obviously...
we talk about Trump and whether he's right or wrong. The one thing he's doing is effectively leading the US, and he's got so many followers. I'm not convinced that Albanese has much of a following at all, and it's probably best when he keeps his mouth shut.
Yeah, fair point too. Fair point. I think what it probably illustrated is that at a global level, when you sit down and you think about these great leaders that have led the world and so on, we are devoid of great leadership at this particular moment in time. It feels like it, and at a time when the world is at a delicate spot. It's not a great place at this moment in time. It doesn't feel like a great place. And normally you would have leaders who can say, don't worry, we can lead you through. At the moment, if you look at the US, looking here in Australia, looking globally, you're kind of going, it feels a little bit empty. The interesting one, I guess, from all this stuff is when you look at what's going on in the United States, when you look at what's going on here in Australia, and particularly the United States with the UK, there seems to have been a massive fallout around the UK not helping and not providing any support. And that's really irritated Trump. That has reverberations for AUKUS, I would think, in terms of where we're going, and given that we've pinned our hopes on this American alliance and our whole defence infrastructure is built on this. Australia's got a few challenges outside of what's going on at this particular moment in time, don't you think?
Very much so. Yeah, we've got more than our fair share of challenges.
Yeah, I think we need to grow up. I think we need to grow up. Now, look, in some good news, on the back of Albanese's speech last night, which we're all confused and we don't understand why he did it, but that's a separate issue. The National Cabinet did come together and come up with a couple of ideas about reducing some of the imposts on fuel and all that kind of stuff from that end. So we've seen reductions in the fuel excise, which was a great decision from that point of view. We've seen some reductions in road users in terms of the charges charged, particularly to heavy vehicles. So that means trucks get a bit of a chop out and all that kind of stuff. So this is all designed to help keep prices down. However, whilst we can do certain things, you've also got the corporates who we're hoping won't gouge. And as we've seen, corporates at times won't behave the way they should from that end, which ultimately means the consumer ends up paying more. But I do want to give some kudos to the Victorian government, and I don't give kudos very often. But the Victorian government, to their credit, turned around and said public transport is free for the next month to at least alleviate some of the pressures and help people, rather than get into their cars and drive to work from that point of view, if they're able to do so, to jump on the train or jump on the tram or jump on a bus, and it won't cost them anything. Good idea?
I think it's been a great idea for the bus companies. I have never seen so many buses on the road.
Yeah.
So I think the incentives for them to get the buses on the road and be taking passengers in terms of being compensated by the government must be enormous. Just driving down Keilor Road this morning at 6:30 a.m. from one end to the other, I drove past 4 of them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot of buses.
Not sure there was many on them at that time of the day. But look, I think we don't give credit to the Victorian government often, and probably rightly so. But I think this has been positive, and it gives a bit of a handout, and it allows people to effectively leave the car at home, make use of something that the state's providing. So, well done to them.
Yeah, no, you got to give them credit for that one. Got to give them credit. And look. In fairness, I noticed, and just speaking to the kids over the last few days, the usage of public transport, particularly on the trains, is up significantly. So the trains in the morning, we always knew they were busy for peak hour, and in the evenings we knew they were busy. But even during the day now, the trains are at 11 o'clock or 1 o'clock in the afternoons. They're pretty full. So people are being quite clever about saying, well, okay, I'll leave the car at home, or I might just drive to the station, and then I'll pick up a train from that end. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes over the Easter weekend. And whether or not that demand maintains. But look, kudos to the government on that regard. They've done a lot of dumb things, as we all know. But this decision, I think, is probably one of the better ones. Mirko, will you be jumping on the train anytime soon?
Yeah, I was just thinking about that. I reckon it would be like 2 hours, 2 to 2.5 hours each way for me to get to particularly Keilor. It's a bit of an awkward spot to get to with public transport. So I think whilst I've got the vapors still running in my tank, you'll probably see my car out the front of the office most days, guys.
Yeah, no, fair enough too. And in some brilliant news for VicPol, and when I say brilliant news, it was a sad and tragic end to what has been a terrible circumstance. But the fugitive that took the lives of 2 officers and put the life of a 3rd officer in very real jeopardy from that point of view has been caught and I don't know what the word is, but no longer here moving forwards. That's a great result for VicPol, and nice for them to be able to put an end to that terrible story, I dare say.
Yeah, very much so. The less said, the better. But a result that was well overdue. That's been 7 months of resources and so much heartache for people. At least it gives them a chance to sort of put that chapter to bed. Although, unfortunately, for a lot of families and people in the emergency services, that pain lingers on for a long time now.
No, it does. And look, and the reason why we've raised it is because we have a number of people who serve through VicPol emergency services who are clients of ours, and we've seen the actual pain firsthand that they deal with. And we love what you guys do, and we're forever grateful for the contributions that you make to society. And you should never go to work and not be able to come home at the end of the day. That's just not even conceivable. But unfortunately, we live in a world where it is a bit like that. So when circumstances like this happen, our hearts go out to you, and the fact that we've been able to bring this situation to a close is a good thing from that end. We've got the big Easter break coming up, gentlemen. Anything exciting on the agenda for either one of you? Anthony, what have you got planned this weekend, mate? Are you going away? Are you doing anything?
Not should be relatively quiet. Hopefully, yeah, catch up on a few things around home, catch up with some family and friends, and yeah, just enjoy the 4-day break.
Oh, nice. What about you, Mick? What are you doing, mate?
We're hosting Easter at our place, so yeah, it'd be nice to have the house full with a few generations of family. So it'll be good. It's always a fun time, and it doesn't matter how old you are, you're never too old to celebrate Easter.
No, look, it is a great time of year, and I do love Easter a lot because it is a time of renewal. It is a time where you sit back and you can go, well, okay, there's an opportunity to refresh and restart, and a 4-day break after what has been an incredibly busy start after the Christmas break. Usually you come in January and you kind of just cruise in January, and February and March starts to get busy, but this year, we started on the 5th of January and it was just hit the ground running, and you haven't really stopped. So I think it'd be kind of cool.
What about you, Luke? You always ask us what we're doing. What about you, mate? What are you doing this break?
I've got Easter with the family doing that. I'm actually batching it. My darling has flown off into Europe. She's catching up with our youngest, who's studying in Cardiff at the moment. So she's catching up with her for a couple of weeks for a bit of mum and daughter time, which is superb. So we dropped her off at the airport last night, and it was actually sad last night at the airport. You walk past the Emirates desk, the Qatar desk, and the Etihad desk, and they're all quiet from that point of view. And yet Air Malaysia, Singapore, and Cathay Pacific, you couldn't move. It was just extraordinary. So clearly flight patterns have changed enormously. And yeah, it's incredibly expensive to fly at the moment, but it is what it is. So yeah, looking forward to having a batchful weekend, I dare say.
May have been sad last night, Luke, but I will throw you under the bus. You had a spring in your step this morning. I'm just putting it out there. Just putting it out there when you walked in. You're going to get in so much trouble. I love it.
Thanks, mate. And look, I'm excited because I get to eat all the chocolate Easter eggs. And
yes,
as you can tell, I'm not prone to liking a chocolate Easter egg, so it's kind of cool. So I won't complain there. All right. Well, look. To our wonderful clients, wishing you a wonderful, wonderful Easter. Enjoy the spoils of what is a great time of the year, and enjoy the spoils of being with family and do all the things you need to do from that end. To our wonderful team, as always, thank you for all the work that you do, and to our clients as well. Kudos to you. It's been a challenging time in markets. It's been a little bit up and down from that point of view, but your resilience, your resolve, your ability to take everything in your stride, and to know that the work we've done in advance in terms of mandate, the quality focus and the diversification that's applied from that end, you've pretty much gone, yeah, this is no issue here, nothing to see, which has been nice as well. So we appreciate that as always. Take care, all the very best, and we'll chat to you next week. Cheers, guys.
Stay safe. Happy Easter.